All right, let's get underway. Good afternoon. I am so appreciative of you being here. I was teasing with my wife that the 3:30 slot on Saturday after an 8-day conference is going to have two people who got lost, didn't know where they were, and my two interns, and that'll probably be about it. But all of you being here is just so affirming and encouraging, so thank you. I also want to demystify, this is one of those classes where there can feel in the atmosphere a little bit of, you have a problem, why are you here? You know, it's like, everyone who goes to the purity class, why did you go? Is there something? So, I want to demystify that anger, and the specific title of our class, Anger Management, is a conversation around one of the most beautiful and important pieces of who we are as people. God invented anger. Anger has a place. Anger has a role. And so we're going to learn to manage it, not eradicate it. So you may be a practitioner of anger or helping someone else with anger, but you are a human being, so you have an issue, so we all can be on the good ship, anger management. My name is Wade Cook. As you see there, the F stands for Felix. I'm named after my father, and my mother originally named me Chad, and which I said that even dismissive, like Chad, but it was going to be a Chad. Until this, according to my mother, and this is what leads into an anger management symposium. My dad came into the hospital, and you have, I think it's 3 days, 72 hours to change the name legally before it's settled. So when my dad found out that my mom had already written the birth certificate that said Chad, he, according to my mother, pouted. According to my dad, I just had a concern. And my mom did not want me to be named Junior or JR or have nicknames, and my dad wanted to be named after him. So they collaborated and landed on Felix Wade Cook Jr., but he'll go by Wade, my dad will go by Felix, and that'll be it. And they're like, okay, there you go. So people think, what does F mean? Fun, fantastic, failure? It actually means Felix. Faithful, that's what I'll go with. Thank you very much. Who's seen this picture? This picture represents the two goals of our time and what I'm hoping that you will get in our conversation. This is a training video. It's a picture of the final training exercise of police dogs. I'm not making that up. That's exactly what this is. And these dogs have been through a number of weeks of training. I'm not sure how long the training is, but their final test is, will they use their training to overcome their natural instinct? And the second piece there, the cat, and I don't know how you get, the little kitty. I don't know how you sign up for that job, or if the cat knows what it's doing when it walks out the little door, but the courage to walk out there into life. And those are the two things that I'm hoping you will leave with today. The courage to take some skills and some knowledge and intentionality to overcome what may be a natural impulse. Not a bad impulse, but a natural impulse. And to be able to, at a time of testing, at a time of crisis, take those tools to overcome your natural instinct. Do we even have a choice in anger management? When I act childlike, when I react impulsively, when it just comes out of my mouth, or if it doesn't come out of my mouth because I'm a mature enough Christian, but it comes out of my eyes, my body language, like. Do I have a choice? Most of us have been practicing anger suppression, which is not anger management, nor is it anger understanding. It's just, keep it down. And I want to release you with the answer, do we have a choice? It is no and yes. No, you can't react to how other people act. You can't control what other people say or do, or maybe they are a trigger, or this meeting is a trigger. You can't control those things. But yes, you can insert some thoughts and some tools and interrupt before you get angry. Or before you, let me restate that, get inappropriately angry. Because as we will talk about in a little bit, Jesus models appropriate anger. Jesus, as in everything, is our perfect example. And we get to see, and I want to even rechange our dialogue, that this is not anger suppression or anger elimination. But we can learn some skills into how to control when, how, and what we do with our emotions. Anger is, you may have seen the movie, is it Inside Out? If you haven't, it's a great film there. But this is the character that represents anger. What is anger? In any important conversation, it's important to address terms. Maybe your next argument, start by saying, what are the terms? What are the definitions that we're using here? Anger is, I have to click through a couple. It's a secondary emotion. Something happens first, which is going to be important in what we're going to talk about, how to dialogue it. Maybe you felt condescended to, or ignored, or hurt. And anger is one of the several ways you can choose to express that. But recognize that anger isn't in and of itself a thing. It's a reaction. It is an expression to something that's below the surface there. It's a secondary emotion. Joy is a secondary emotion. It's not something you can just generate. It's something that you have to react and express from. There are other things. And joy is a good example. If you ever see a baby, you go, I love babies. And they just bring, your joy is a secondary reaction to the baby. The baby is the thing. Your emotions are secondary to it. We'll get to why that's important. Unmet expectations. This is one of the primary understandings, that you have expectations or a hope or a dream of something working out. Sometimes you have an expectation, we'll go back to our driving example, that dude is not, he's going to signal and then come left. And dude did not communicate. He just came left. And I had an expectation that you were going to be responsible. But it wasn't met. Or if you're waiting for something, an anniversary, I'm sure he's going to remember this year. And you have an expectation. Now, the key, if we don't get to it later in communication, is talk about what you're talking about. So you need to communicate your expectations. And there's a place and a time that's good for all that, but anger is at root, secondarily, an unmet expectation. And there's space and room there to identify, what am I wanting? What do I need from this event or this interaction? And it's part of God's design, like I said. In the pantheon of emotions, I guess pantheon is many gods, so I guess I should say the spectrum of emotions. Anger is one of them. I got my degree in biology, and I equate anger to fire. Has anyone heard of the fire cycle? In nature, fire has an important role. I live in San Diego, California. I was born and raised in Denver, so fires and forest fires are a thing there, and it seems like everywhere else in the world. But fire does a couple of things. One, it burns up years of needle falls and dead animals and all kinds of stuff, and returns those different organic pieces to their natural state, to carbon, where it gets immersed back in soil and gets back into the system. Fire is what kills beetles. So if you're in a place with a lot of woods and you have a beetle kill problem, fire, it's unmet fire, unchecked or checked fire that doesn't go through. Fire clears out old trees and things that can be create fuel. But if you suppress fire, you see what happens when it gets licked. And that so happens again, as I mentioned, that many of us are practicing fire suppression, not figuring out where it fits in my normal range of human interaction. So it's part of a God's design. Again, welcome. None of you are all, in that class. You are going to be practitioners of God's design. Aristotle said this: anybody can become angry. That's easy. To become angry with the right person at the right time, to the right degree, and for the right purpose, that is the trick. Anyone gets angry, everyone gets angry. But to do it with the right purpose, where it's helpful, at the right time, in appropriate measure, that is the difficult part. And as I said before, doesn't Jesus model this for us all? I'm sure you cannot read all of that text, but this is the story that many of us are familiar with when Jesus goes into the synagogue, and it says the Pharisees, their entire focus, this is that part where Jesus can't control, but you can control how you react. They were watching him closely to see if he would heal on the Sabbath so they might accuse him. They've already set in their mind that they're against him. And we're looking to see if he's going to do something to give us further ammunition to get him. If you walked into Bible talk or church and someone is in there looking at you in that way, what's your natural reaction? Defensive. For some of us, our fighting styles, we go on the attack. Or our fighting styles we avoid. And or just suppress. We just take it and chew on it. And then we get home and kick the cat. But Jesus models something that's really important. He leans into the situation. And he calls some very great guy, some lucky guy that we'll get to meet in heaven, and I'm looking forward to the unnamed characters in heaven. So there's a guy who's coming to church, amen? And Jesus walks in, and there's this tension in the room, and then Jesus says, hey, you there, come here. Come up front. Guy comes up front, and Jesus says to those accusers, what should we do here? What do you think is the right thing to do with this hurting person? And they don't answer because they're not really interested in dialogue. They're not really interested in conversation and resolution. And I say all that because you may be in a situation the same, where you're interacting with somebody and they're not interested in resolve. They're not trying. Resolve, conflict management is something you can do without two parties. And Jesus models it here. These guys are not interested in conversation, not interested, again, in dialogue. And then he heals the guy. And the Pharisees leave and go, "Argh." But what is the thing it says about Jesus that he was upset about? Oh, I wish I had my little pointer. After looking around at them with anger. Again, looking at our further definition. The right people, for the right reason, with the right response. With anger, you see our Lord perfectly implementing part of who we are as humanity. He doesn't insult them. He doesn't browbeat them. We don't read, at least in the scriptures, when they leave, he goes, oh, those Pharisees are crazy. Okay, listen, gather around. We got to get a bigger crowd against them. But he's specific and strategically revealing their hearts for all eternity. But he models for us that we don't need two to work well in anger. You just need to have the spirit and the heart and the tools that we'll get to in a little bit. John 2, what about this one? Jesus goes crazy. Is this appropriate? Again, what's the context? In the temple. And if you know the temple construct, and if you didn't go, by the way, little plug, Courtney, what is Dr. Courtney Bailey, a brother from Jamaica, did this incredible class on the tabernacle. Please listen to it, and what I'm about to say will make a lot more sense. It was just a phenomenal class. But he laid out the construct of the temple. And in the outer courtyard, Gentiles could go. Gentiles could not go into the inner courtyard or anywhere in the inner workings. So it's in the outer courtyard that they have this fair. The Jews have set up. And it's kind of like your county fair. If you're on your way to sacrifice, I forgot to bring an animal. There's tables right there. You can exchange your money. You can buy something, hit a quick sacrifice, get home by dinner. That's what religion had become. That's what a walk with God had become. And not only was it insidious in the Jews that it was just habit, this is what was outward facing to the Gentiles. And so what employs Jesus' anger, it would appear, is not just the Jewish behavior, but how the church looks to the lost. That is an issue. And so he appropriately, but clearly, expresses anger. Again, is it the volume? Is it the intensity? No, it's the situation. And so I just want to give you some things to chew on, in my opinion, how God perfectly models both calm anger and more overt anger. This is the piece where I need you to get a piece of paper. And you're going to put your paper is that horizontally? Landscape, that's right. Exactly. I did not do very well in geometry. I had a biology major, but math, eluded me. This is a general XY, and on the, it cross-checks two things. It's sort of a temperament test. On the top, I have the word cooler. You can write cooler or more reserved, and that's in how you express. How expressive of a person are you? The opposite side of the, that's the x-axis there, is warmer, more expressive. So more huggy, touchy, feely to the bottom, less huggy, touchy, feely to the top, more cool. Those are the words I use. To the right and to the left are descriptions of how quickly you make decisions. So to the right, they're quickly. To the left, more slowly, more strategically. And if you match those two dynamics, you'll get generally 4 personality types. Will give us information of your fighting style, your conflict style. So, and you can place yourself in, and almost no one is just one thing. But you probably predominate in one of the 4. I'll start in the upper right or upper left there with a calculator. These are the people that tend to be more analytical, more precise. When they're shopping for a car, they will take 3 months to read every review, every trim line, look through exactly safety things. They'll read the reviews, and it'll take them forever to make a decision, but they'll make good ones. So administrator types, CPA types, accountant types, that's what's in the upper left. They fear rules not being followed. For them, there's a great security. Rules are rules for a reason, and they should be followed by everybody, and there's order, and it makes sense. All right, so that's the calculator. To the upper right is the commander. This commander is more impatient, abrupt, driven, competitive, assertive, is comfortable with power, likes power, can be more aggressive, is pioneering. This person chooses excellence over relationship. If a commander is in charge of a program, it's going to be excellent. And you may like them, you may not like them, but it doesn't matter to them. I already have enough friends. We have a job to do, let's do it. These people tend to be more CEOs, more heads of things, heads of organizations. They're the one that will rise up if you're at family group, and they're the ones who'll be like, all right, you know what, I got something, let's say this. The positive is that they do tend to make things happen. The negative is they fear a loss of opportunity. So, come on! We only have 2 days to make, let's do it! This deal's leaving. And these are the types that they win big and they lose big. They win big and they lose big. But the calculator, oh my gosh, losing is, that's a waste. You can see which one plays the stock market and which one is fight. We'll get to this in a second. The connector, these are warm, they're slower paced, they are family oriented, they like to blend in, they don't like to be on stage at all. All events in the day are emotionally connected. People trust the connectors the most. And for connectors, these are the kind of people that they don't have friends. Everyone's family. Either don't know you or you're family. And it takes a long time to get into that trust, but once you have it, you're in. And they don't, again, want to be on stage. These are the people that serve. These are typically your kids' kingdom coordinators, the AV folks. They just want everyone else to shine. They take their time, but their fighting style is also that deliberate and slow and quiet, and everything connects. So if you had a fight in the morning, the day's gone. Traffic is bad, food is bad, everything's bad because everything connects. The opposite of that is the commander. Things are in boxes, they don't connect. We had a fight in the morning, I got in the car, I'm done. Didn't we conclude that? Why are you still thinking about it? The connector is still thinking about it and spinning on it. What did you say and how did it say? And the communicator, this is me, warm, friendly, love people, talk with their hands a lot, have a cluttered desk, a cluttered car. I'm more impulsive. I'm quickly emotional. So this is the one where someone says something in staff meeting, I'm like, wow, Wade, wow. I can go from 0 to 60 really quickly. Relationship over project is my value. I fear not being in relationship. So if you put a communicator in charge of a project, it's probably not going to get done. But you're going to have a great time being on the job. And if it gets done, it'll be late, it'll be over budget, but man, you're going to have new best friends. And so place yourself in there. What is your sort of predominant? And if you're married or have a roommate, you may want to look at where they are, where they predominate. And on this model, just for relationship's sake, if you share a line, you get along more easily with that person. If you have a point, you have more difficulty with that person. So I'm a communicator. We have a couple of commanders on our staff. I get along fine with them. And I don't take them that seriously. I can make them laugh, you know. They don't bug me that much. My wife is a connector. That same person just is mean. And I'll go, yeah, you know. They say stuff, I'm sure they're not even thinking about it right now, and they're probably not. But the connector is. So the connector and commanders don't naturally get along as well. On the other hand, calculators. My dad's an electrical engineer. And so this is one of those things I'm like, oh, man, you just never smile. Do you have an emotion? Overly stated, of course. But does that make sense? So if you, in your pantheon of friendships, have one, understand who you are, and their fighting style will be connected. We do some pre-marriage counseling, and this is one of my favorite things in our pre-marriage counseling. We do about 10 weeks, my wife and I, a series, and this comes out of our communication handbook. We have 2 weeks that we do communication, general communication, and then we sit down with young married couples or proposing to be married, and we have a specific conversation on how to have a fight. Because isn't that helpful? At least we hope it'll be helpful. But man, everyone is going to get into a conflict. Conflict itself is not bad. If you're not in conflict, you're not talking. You're not actually being revealed. There are defenses up, or there's some distance. So if you're not in conflict, and the only exception I can think about is Jesus, God, and the Holy Spirit, who are perfectly united and not in conflict. That's the only exception I can think of in nature. So unless you're one of those three, you have conflict. How do we handle conflict? I would like to suggest you 6 tools, and then we'll have a little time of processing this a bit. First of all, number 1, in a conflict, try to stay calm. Proverbs 14:17, don't overreact. A quick-tempered man does foolish things. Proverbs 15, verse 18, a hot-tempered man stirs up dissension, but a patient man or woman calms a quarrel. Stay calm. I am probably never going to finish it, but I started as a young man my pilot's license. You have to get 35 hours to test for your private pilot's license. I have 21. And I'll probably never get to the rest. My wife and I are also scuba certified. Haven't been in the water in forever, but those 2 trainings, the first thing, the last thing, and the middle thing that they talk about in between, learning to be a pilot and learning to scuba dive, don't panic. Keep your head. There is a solution. Even if you're 80 feet underwater and your oxygen is out, there is a way that you can figure it out if you don't panic. And that principle is true. If you are emotional, none of us works well when we're scared or in what I think is our right brain, our emotional side. And emotions are great. I'm just saying, stay calm. If you're triggered, take a breath. We'll do an exercise in a second. So important. Point number 2 here. Have meaningful dialogue. Talk about what you're talking about. Fight about what you're fighting about. If I feel disregarded, then that's what you should be saying. Not, you never eat anything that I make. You're always late. Do you not own a watch? Do you not know how that works? Talk about what you're talking about and not the rest. Most of our arguments go sideways or otherwise because we leave the topic. And the topic itself usually isn't that big a deal. But we talked about anger suppression. It's at these moments that it all comes out. And now your mother-in-law, let's talk about that. And now how you drive, let's talk about that. And But if you practice anger management and you do this on a regular basis, then it's easier to get calm and fight about what you're fighting about. As we talked about, anger is a secondary emotion. And so what is it that is really triggering me? Again, we'll get to that in just a second when we talk about a timeout. But have meaningful dialogue. Ask questions. Seek to understand. Find out what maybe what's behind that question. And usually, you'll realize that you assumed something the worst, that you feared something. So have meaningful dialogue. Watch your nonverbals. We all know this, right? There was a study done a number of years ago that measured communication, conflict communication. And if of 100%, the study broke conflict conversation into 4 parts. 57% of conflict conversation are what? Your nonverbals. Your tone. No, not even tone. Your body language. 53%. Write that down. So I just messed that up. 53% are your physical, your body language. 37% is your tone. So literally 90% of a conflict has nothing to do with the words. And this is true of all communication. As an example, Neil is up front. And if I said to Neil, "Hey Neil, it's happy to see you," what do you think I meant? I think I'm happy to see him. If I said, using the exact same words, "Hey Neil, I'm happy to see you." Now what have I said? No, I didn't. I apologized. I said I'm sorry. Your body language. Now, if I said to Neil, "Oh, hey, Neil, oh, happy to see you." Right? Your body language and your tone carries 90% of what you're trying to message. And I use that about "I'm sorry" because this is where many couples get mixed up. I'm sorry. What more do you want? Am I really sorry? So when I sit down for our discipling time, I say, "I said I was sorry." And we typically replay the story. What I said was I was sorry, and she didn't accept it. Is that the way you said that? 7% of conflict communication are the actual words. And 3% they put as other. Are you hungry? Is it the fourth quarter? Are you just about to get up and preach and someone's like, "Hey bro, can I share with you an email that I didn't appreciate?" So only 3% is other. So be aware of your nonverbals. Raised eyebrows, shrugs, silence. These aren't bad. Tears. I want to say a little something about tears. Tears are a wonderful way to communicate. They can be manipulated. So we're not talking about manipulating, but tears say things that words can't. Tears say, "This is very important to me." Which is why we cry at funerals, why we cry at the birth of children, not even our own, because this is important to me. And I don't have the words to express the love I'm feeling right now, so we cry. Or I am terrified, and I don't know how to put words to, so we cry. Tears are welcomed, helpful messengers. And they should be welcomed in conversation. Now, they can be manipulated, and that's not what I'm talking. So don't manipulate tears. But tears are powerful tools, amongst others, of communication. And they can be easily misunderstood. Back to point number 2. Be sure you're talking about what you're talking about. I have this little video. Oops. I think this video here, just as I'm talking about nonverbals. Did I start it? Did I go backwards? Isn't that great? An entire story told without a single word. Thus is the power of your body language and your tone. You say a lot without needing to use words. So let's be thoughtful in how we say what we say. James chapter 1, 19 to 20, you know this. And that's actually what it says, the New American Standard Version. So I love that. You know this, beloved. You know this, brothers and sisters and friends. Everyone must be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. For a man's anger does not bring about the righteousness of God. And we all go, amen. But I take us back to slide number 2. Is that possible? Can you really control your anger? Can you really stop the train of thinking? Can you really not react in a way that's hurtful or inappropriate or embarrassing? The answer is yes. Yes, you can. I think it's one of Satan's lies that you're out of control. You're irrevocably broken. We don't have time to go into the whole Bible study, but Matthew 4, as Jesus is being tempted in the desert, Satan prefaces 2 or 3, I think it's at least 2 of his sentences, if you are the Son of God. I mean, let's not assume. So he says that to you, if you were really a Christian. I mean, does the Holy Spirit really help? I mean, I know you got it. But the Holy Spirit's more of a advisor. Not really powerful enough to change your thinking and your traumas and help you work through things. Those are lies. So when we read James 1, for many years I thought, boy, that just sounds so fantastic, but not for me, because I'm one of the rare exceptions who can't just not control and stop. You can. Listen. And not just stop, but really hear what the other person is trying to say. This is a good place to insert questions. What I think you're asking me, honey, is that what you're saying? Or, hey, boss, what I just to be sure I'm clear, what I heard you saying was, I'm an absolute idiot and know nothing. Is that what you said? And it's a silly example, but hear what is the other person trying to do. And just if we were doing a marriage class or any relationship class, I would say this. Be helpful. If the other person is trying to say something, don't just get stuck in, well, you didn't use when. Like, be a part of the solution. What is he or she trying to say? Then just give them some grace. Right? Just help it along. Okay. Ask questions, but really listen. And at the root of many of those things that we may hear, there is their fear or their unmet expectation. And if you can hear that, you can address that, and you can have more substantive conversation. But listen and forgive from the heart. Now, this is a difficult one for me, and I put this up as more of a question starter, conversation starter amongst you. Can you really forgive and forget? And what about the abusive person in your relationship? What if the other person, again, you can't control what they do, you control what you do, but what about that person who is toxic to your mental and emotional health? What do we do with that? I would suggest that anger is not a helpful place, and this doesn't justify. But there may be somebody or somebodies that you need to extract from or step back from. Block on your phone. And so those are appropriate behaviors in usually extreme situations. And so I just want to throw out as a conversation, what should we forgive? Yes. It's Christian. Do not let the sun go down on your anger. I think we've misapplied. If you start fighting at 7:30, you missed it. I think the spirit of that is be solution-oriented, resolve things. And if you're still fighting and going round and round at 11:30, you know what? Go to bed. We'll pick this up in the morning. Or when we get with some couple. Or let's figure it out, but we're not going to grind each other down until one quits. And we go, woo, look at that. That was really helpful. I believe that passage. I believe the Bible. I just think we draw maybe an inappropriate conclusion out of it, which leads us to not actually being in a healthy relationship. Now, on the other side of that pantheon, you don't just cut people off. It's a generational thing. I'm a baby boomer. No, I'm not a baby boomer. I'm a Gen X. So I was born in 65, so one demographer has me at the very tail end of baby boomers, but most of us say that I'm Gen X. Gen X, which is I bet the majority of people in here, we were taught, and our fighting style is you lean into it. Particularly as disciples. If you're having a fight, you have it out. You go over and you figure it out. It seems to be more of a millennial and Gen Z generational thing that they remove themselves from conflict. I'm not saying that's negative. What I'm saying is it's just their natural inclination. If you're having a fight, just don't go there anymore. If you don't like the food, just don't go to the restaurant. If you don't like the person, just ghost them. Why have the fight? If I already know I'm going to fight, let's not talk anymore. And that is a place of conflict with generations. And I'm not saying that there's not a right or wrong. I'm saying these are dynamics that involve our conflict, our anger, that are a little more complicated, nuanced. So I just want to throw this out as an idea, a conversation starter. Where in your life is forgiveness? Where in your life are healthy boundaries? Where should they be? How can I forgive and truly not have animosity in my heart and still be not in relationship with someone who's toxic to me? There is a place in there. And I want to encourage you to pray, think, talk, discuss where those roles are. That's important. Amen? The art of a timeout. What's our time right now? All right, 4:15. Okay, 12 minutes. I'm going to dial this in. The art of a timeout. Now, a timeout in a conflict situation is like a fire extinguisher. You pray you never need to use it, but you better know how to use it if the stove catches on fire. So this is not a strategy that you should employ all the time, but it is a tool that if you get what therapists world called flooded or triggered, that you want to employ. Now, there's elements of this that are helpful, but I don't want to suggest that every conflict needs to go through an art of a timeout. This is that 11:30 at night, or maybe it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and right before you're going to crest over the hill and hit somebody or throw something. Part of my licensure is men and women's domestic violence. And I was on the offender side. I did group counseling for people who are in domestic violence. You know, of that population, and I love that population. I probably saw a little over 300 different men and women in that group. Of those 300 or so, there were, I would say, maybe 5 legit criminals. You got to go to jail. You ain't getting it. But the vast majority of the other ones just did not have communication skills. I had pastors, restaurant owners, you name the profession, men and women. And so this art of a timeout is something that we teach when you get flooded. And that's where this comes from. So I want you to write this down and know it. You don't have to memorize it, but use it as a fire extinguisher, maybe in your own kitchen or in someone else's kitchen. I'll put all these slides as well on the, I forgot to add them to the app, but I'll make them available for everybody. The art of a timeout. Number 1, de-escalate. So you're at the point where you are flooded, and you want to, with your significant other, or if you're able in the conflict, have a sign that you give while you're calm, not in the moment. And so maybe it's a timeout, or maybe it's your ear. But you want to say, communicate in some way, when you are emotional, I need to take a timeout. And that timeout you've already discussed is going to be temporary and strategic. It's not that I'm just quitting you. I just don't want to proceed because I'm going to say or do something that I'm going to regret, you're going to regret. It's not going to help us go forward. So while you're in a calm space, figure out, agree, can we have a timeout, and what does it look like? And if and when we get there, this will be the sign that one or two of us wants to take the timeout, start into it. And you want to divide these 4 things by about 4 amount of time. I'll use, by an example, an hour, but you want to take 15 minutes, and I'm not saying just 15 minutes, but a quarter of whatever time, depending on the conflict, to de-escalate. Stop the internal dialogue. What's the internal dialogue? I said, and then she said, and then I said, and then boom, see, she knows I'm right. You have that fight in your head? Who always wins that fight in your head? You. You're the clear victim here. Clearly they know you're right. And so you have this dialogue. You have to stop the dialogue. That will help you to de-escalate. One very simple tool, we're going to do a little math right now. In your head, count backwards from 100 by 7. So 100 minus 7 is? Minus 7? 86. Okay, there you go. 80 minus 7? 79, I think? Yeah, Carrie, that's right. Minus 7? 72. Okay, that one's pretty easy. Minus 7. So, okay, now you're starting to roll. And what you've just done is you've taken yourself out of your left brain into your, out of your emotional brain into your reasonable brain. And so you won't have achieved nirvana, but you'll stop the train. And once you have memorized 100 minus 7, you just go, 93, 86. Count backwards from 200 by 8. Just shifting your mind. This is a small little mnemonic, but do something cognitive that moves you from your emotional brain to your logical side. That will help you de-escalate. Number 2, write down, not just think about. Write down what you like, love, and respect about the people or the person that you're in conflict with. Maybe you want to write it in the dirt as you're walking around the park, or write it in the blood of Jesus because you're such a righteous person and you write it on the sand. That's what probably Jesus was doing. What was it he was writing down there? He was like, okay, I do love them. I do love them. I do love them. I'm going to. But write down what you like, love, and respect. about the person you love. This will help you come back to someone you love, not someone you're in conflict with. And while you're not in conflict with someone, you probably can think of 10 things immediately. What I really love and like about this person. But when you're in conflict, it's much harder. All you can think about is, whoa, she's so stubborn. Why doesn't she ever? That's why this exercise continues that train of logical thinking. C, we talked about earlier, fight about what you're fighting about. Identify the cause of my emotion. Do I feel disregarded? I'm hurt. I'm angry. Why? Do I feel ignored? Do I feel, and no judgment, but just identify what is it I'm feeling. Do I feel dismissed? Do I feel taken advantage of? Do I feel like they are condescending, like they think I'm stupid, that I can't handle? What is it you're thinking? And write that down. Not a judgment, and you may or may not be right. But just write down what you're actually thinking. You're probably not right, but it will help you to re-engage the conversation and have healthy dialogue. So what is it that identify the cause? There's all kinds of emotion charts, names for words on the internet. You can Google and just get a long list of words that I may feel. Maybe print off a few sheets for yourself and you walk around and you circle, but really identify what it is that I'm feeling. And then at some point, come back together. And in a conflict, you plan your reconnection. What we say in domestic violence is you get out of the house, leave your keys, leave your wallet, go for a walk. And then you call, take your cell phone, and you call and say, hey, is it okay if I come back? Is this a good time? Generally, for this audience, you're at that level. But if you are, call first. Is it good? When would be a good time for us to re-engage the talk? And if he or she says, now it's good. Okay, let's dive in. Here's what I'm feeling. First of all, I'm sorry. You could always find a reason that you could have done something differently. When Deb and I first had our little baby, we were on our way to a meeting, and Mackenzie, 3-month-old Mackenzie, was in our carry-all. What's that? Not carry-all. What's that thing called? Car seat. Thank you. Thank you. I need some help. My words. And we're late. I was making us late. So we're hustling out into the car. I put Mackenzie into the seat. I put the seatbelt over. I pushed the little metal into the base there, but not far enough in. I didn't hear a click. But we're sort of late, right? So I get in the driver's seat. Deb gets in the passenger seat. We drive up the street. We turn left, and I'm kind of making up time. And Mackenzie flips over. So she's in her car seat, but she's now dangling upside down. And Deb reacts as a mom. What are you doing? And I go, I'm trying to get us on time. And now we're off and running. And thankfully, we're actually on our way to a discipling time. And so we roll in and say, we're currently having a fight now. And the brother and sister said, what's the fight? Blah, blah. We walked it through. And they said, Wade, you owe Deb an apology. I'm like, for what? I didn't intentionally not click the thing in there. And he said, no, you didn't intentionally, but you didn't. If you had clicked it, she wouldn't have rolled over. Deb wouldn't have reacted. Although the reaction wasn't appropriate, she wouldn't have, right? You put a position in, right? There didn't have to be a winner or a loser. You just both participated, and you're apologizing for what was your part of the conflict. That was a deep insight. Apology doesn't indicate a winner or a loser. It's just your acknowledgement of your role in it. So in this fight, we could have been more on time. I did need to probably do some small errand. I could have clicked it in. Deb could have been more patient. I could have gone slower around the corner. Deb could have carried the baby out. There's a number of things for us to both apologize for. That helps your conversation. So I'm sorry, I could have. And that's what you want to plan in your reconnection. My batteries fell out, so I'm just going to do this. Finally, be kind to everyone you know. Because everyone you know is facing a battle of some kind. Be kind to everyone you know, inclusive of yourself. Because everyone is facing a challenge. All of us have different things that are weighing on us. And until heaven gets here, we have aging parents. We have pandemic. I don't make enough money. There's a lump that wasn't there before. I have poured my heart into my kids, and one of them's not speaking to us any longer. They're not where they are spiritually, where they should be. I'm not where I should be spiritually. I'm isolated. And on top of that, our singing is terrible. You can just add to it. Be kind. And that'll help. So conflict is a good thing. Anger is a part of who you are as a human being. Embrace it. Learn about it. And if there's anything I do want to take from it as we close, it's that beginning picture of the little cat. Have the courage. You can do this. Have the courage to lean in and apply tools that will help all of us go against our natural inclinations. Thank you for coming. And I hope that this was a helpful time.